Hey everybody, welcome to Average Guy Opinions. I'm your average guy, John Corelli. I'm going to talk about podcasts today, specifically mine, but also ones that I think are pretty good. Um, I'm going to start off with my three. One is kind of in mothballs right now, hibernating, as it were, but maybe I could do an ornithology podcast and address these squawking magpies and ravens around me. Dear God, it's the birds. The birds, you mean? The birds. Jesus, I'm a little frightened right now. I may have to run inside to finish this episode. But yeah, so my first podcast I started is called Another Comic, Another Podcast, and I'm very proud of that title because honestly, almost every comic, famous, not famous, local, national, is doing a podcast on some level, often several. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I've decided that at age 54, I think pretty much the only hobby I'm going to do is entertainment. But there are a lot of things that fall under entertainment, right? There's the comedy that I do, and then there's podcasting, and then maybe I'll find some other avenues to do. I mean, I did act in a movie this year. I was not very good, but I did get paid, so yeah. So that's probably going to be my new thing. So, some guys in their 50s work on old cars. Some guys in their 50s, I don't know, do whatever, collect stamps and coins and things like that. I used to do that, but I'm pretty much done with it. So this, I think, it's a good thing to keep, hopefully, the brain and somewhat the body active. But that's going to be my new thing. I'm going to be a podcasting slut. That's what I'm going to be. I will appear on any podcast. I will create several podcasts, and I will not charge. So I will be a podcasting slut. Yeah. So. I've only done 6 episodes of Another Comic, Another Podcast, but I would like to start getting that going again. Maybe do that during winter break if I'm a little bored, like the last 2 weeks of the year. See if I can get some comics to come over and just do a quick 30 minute to 1 hour podcast. So looking forward to re-upping that. Some sort of weird words that I'm making up. But I do look forward to getting that started again. So going to do that. And then last night we did episode 1, me and Tom Sturgeon. Still not sure what we want to call it yet. I'd like to call it the Barking Cats because it's just a silly, stupid... It's 2 old guys complaining. If you like that, you'll love us. We started talking about Jefferson High last night and what it was like to go to that high school and how we thought it was pretty good. Kind of came up because Tom works with police officers. It's called Crisis Intervention Training, I believe it's called. Tom got his degree in theater tech. He's been an actor and an entertainer himself for a long time. So I think we understand each other when it comes to that kind of stuff. And he part of the way he makes money from time to time is to actually use his acting abilities to act like a person that a cop might have to arrest in their day-to-day routine. And then he talks to police officers, and he happened to run into a police officer that said, "Oh yeah, I went to Jefferson 1980. I graduated there in 1988. The place was a shithole." And we're like, really? We don't recall it as being that bad then. In the 90s, it sounded like it downgraded a little bit because apparently a lot of DPS, Denver Public Schools rejects, were being filtered into Jefferson. My half-brother Sean went there. He graduated in 95. He's 10 years younger than me, and he said, yeah, it was pretty rough going there in the 90s. He said he did not like it a lot. So he dealt, but I think I liked it more than he did. I think I had an easier time there than he did too. But yeah, so we ended up talking about some of the cool teachers there, and that'll be an easy springboard to start a lot of conversations. We ended up at about 45 minutes, which is pretty standard. I don't think anyone wants to hear 2 guys bitch about stuff for more than 45 minutes. So hopefully you guys can enjoy that one. I'll probably put a link to it in the description of this video, and I'll probably put a link also to episode 3 of Top Cookies, the hockey podcast I'm doing, which is a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying that. My friend Mike Davis unfortunately lost a good friend of his named Aaron Towns, and we dedicated this whole season, the whole podcast, to him because he was young. He was like 35, and he unfortunately battled alcoholism his whole life, and he died last week, and it was Mike's best friend. And so Mike's dealing with that, and that's part of the dealing with it, is that we will dedicate our podcast to this guy. Nice guy. I met him once, but as if you listen to the podcast, you will see that I forgot about that meeting because it was me doing comedy, and sometimes comedy is just a blur. You're just trying to make people laugh, and you meet some people and you forget about them because let's be honest, comics are terrible people. We're narcissists. We're awful. So yeah, so those are the three things I'm working on. I will also put link in the description for episode 3 of Top Cookies. I like Top Cookies a lot because it's forcing me to learn more about hockey, because Mike's really on top of his hockey knowledge, and I know like a decent amount about the Islanders and a decent amount about the Avalanche, the teams I care about, but I really have not stayed on top. I know the big stars, but now I got to start learning a little more so I can banter better with Mike during the podcast. We both, even though he describes me as the comedian, I think he's as funny as I am, if not funnier. And so it's a pretty good podcast. I'm pretty happy with our first 3 episodes. So, so that's what I'm working on. I don't know how I'm going to fill another 4 minutes talking about podcasts, except maybe ones that I like. Like I said, there's a reason I call mine Another Comic, Another Podcast. And I was so psyched. I was so excited when you have to search for domain names. You can't have two things can't be named the same without either consent of the person that had the name first, or maybe a payment method. I think that has often happened. So back in the 90s, there were guys that would claim domain names before the famous people that would naturally get fed into that, like the internet. You type in Tom Jones, right? You're going to expect Tom Jones the Entertainer to come up. Well, if Tom Jones had already been claimed, Tom Jones, this guy would go, yeah, I'll give you Tom Jones. Yeah, you got to pay me. And so that was a thing that happened. I don't know if that still happens, but I could see it happening. But luckily, I was very excited to get Another Comic, Another Podcast, because whenever I say that, comics laugh, because they know how ridiculous it is. So, where was I? Oh yeah, so some of the podcasts that I like. I'm not. Joe Rogan is kind of on the chopping block now, as far as possibly being canceled, especially by Zs and millennials. But people like me, Generation X people, that actually kind of agree with him on a lot of stuff. Not everything. I mean, it's apparent he's an anti-vaxxer, and that he looks kind of ridiculous on that stance right now. There are a lot of common sense things, because I'm right about his age. I think he's a year younger than me. All these guys were around my age, and I've mentioned them in the past as far as comics that I look up to and that I am fans of, like Louis C.K., Bill Burr, Joe Rogan, the late Patrice O'Neill, the late Greg Giraldo, Doug Stanhope, Patton Oswalt, and there's just an amazing bunch of guys that were born in the late 60s, early 70s who did really well at comedy. And so I follow some of their podcasts from time to time. Sometimes I'll listen to Bill Burr's podcast, but I got to be honest, I really don't listen to podcasts very much, because when you're listening to them, you're not making them. So I want to be one of the guys that makes the entertainment. Now, if any of this will ever turn into anything that's even close to lucrative, that'd be wonderful. But it's, like I said, it's a hobby, and frankly, it's not a very expensive hobby. I pay $12 a month for my SoundCloud account that I put my podcasts onto. I may get a second SoundCloud account, but still $24. That's not even $1 a day. I sound like one of those charities in the '80s, or for kids starving on the other side of the planet. That's only 55 cents a day, not even a cup of coffee, and you can help a child live. And so, yeah, I'm helping myself live in the entertainment industry for like $1 or less a day, so I'm okay with that. Not a very expensive hobby. I don't have too much else to say, but I got 80 seconds to fill, so what should we talk about, huh? I'm gonna probably segue into my next video, which is famous people I've met. And I gotta check though, because here's my big fear with this. As I approach episode 300, I am understanding that average guys don't have a lot of opinions, unless you follow the news a lot, like sometimes I want to, and sometimes it's just too damn depressing. But a guy like me, I'm finding that, man, I have a lot of opinions, but they're overlapping already. So I got to go through my videos and check and see if I've done a brushes with greatness video already. I may have done one early on where I just talk about famous people I met, mostly through the movie theater business. Oh, by the way, that kind of brings me back to mine and Tom's podcast. Our next episode will probably be about us talking about our life in the movies. Tom reviewed movies for the Jefferson Sentinel, which was our newspaper in high school, and he actually got to know film critics from the Rocky Mountain News, Bob Dennerstein, and from the Denver Post, Howie Movshevitz, and I knew those guys too. I used to see them at the Tivoli. They would come in and review a lot of their movies there in the morning before we even started, on usually a Thursday, and then they'd print off the, write their critiques, and then get them ready for the Friday morning paper. So yeah, that was kind of cool that Tom and I kind of have that in common, that we have some film background. So that'll be the next episode. My next episode will be something hopefully about famous people, but I got to check and make sure I haven't done it already. All right, you guys, thanks for checking it out. I'll see you next time. Bye.